Welcome to the Hole. I am Rob Sprance, and I am joined by Super Bowl champion Ryan Clark. I could introduce you, Ryan, as so many different things now. ESPN host, the pivot now is blowing up. I mean, across the board, I am so happy for your success. You are getting attention and well-deserved, man.
Oh man, thank you so much. It's been a wild ride. You know, the media is a different thing from football. It's obviously a second career for me, and I think the goal has been to find things that are fulfilling, to find ways to create, spaces for yourself, and that's what I'm trying to do. Mostly. At some point, though, I'll stop traveling. I'll rest a little bit and enjoy retirement.
Yeah, well, I think you're going to be a long way from retiring from being a broadcaster because, I haven't had any Steelers on as of yet. And as a longtime fan, you're at the top of my list. And the reasons are many. First of all, you brought us a Super Bowl, so thank you. But more importantly, you're incredibly funny. And there's no bullshit with you. You're just straightforward in what you think. And I was watching. I think the first thing I want to touch on is the show you have, The Pivot, where you've been doing these interviews, and as the guests have ramped up, so has how incredibly interesting the show is. You had Antonio Brown on, which I'd love to touch on, and then you follow that up with Michael Beasley, who had such an honest, open conversation too. I think they relate to you a lot more because you've gone through a lot of the things that they have, and you're just sitting there having conversations with them. It wasn't like you were prodding either one of them.
Yeah.
You were just talking about it.
Yeah, it's been an experience for me. It's crazy. The show has kind of picked up a lot of steam, but we're still 2 months in. We have so many views, over 200,000 subscribers already, but I'm also learning how to host a podcast. Initially when you come into it and it's you and it's Channing and Fred, I wanted everything to be like this open conversation. Like I basically wanted everything to be as not necessarily we were having guests, but it was between all of us that we were all just sitting around talking. And then, with having a producer and looking at different comments, people were like, no, we're interested in getting to know your guests. And that's when I realized, well, from a podcast standpoint, I turned into an interviewer when we have a guest. And I've been, and that's something you have to work on when you've always been an analyst or you have been the athlete and people were looking for your opinion. Now I'm not in that space. And it's been dope to study people, to have a Michael Beasley come on and have him, he was scared before he came on. He said he wasn't. Like he gets there and there's all of these cameras and it's a different setup. It's not like the normal podcast. It's basically like doing a studio show. And he's like, man, I really wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't ready for this. And then you get him to come on and he's trying to find his thoughts, find his bearings. And like our job, as you know, Rob, is to find a question or find a way to make them feel comfortable.
Right.
And then it like I know, if you don't do your study, if you're not locked in to who your guest is, it's your fault, not theirs.
Sure.
And then to get to the question where I asked him about relationships and it kind of opened him up and it really produced something for us we weren't expecting. Like I was ready to talk about basketball and him trying to get back into the game. And now you have to make the adjustment to the energy of your guest. And it's been cool, man. We did Stephen A. On Tuesday. We've had Antonio Brown. Some of the guests that that we have lined up, man. They're Warren Saps and they're Jalen Ramseys and they're Dana Whites, and so it's like all these different people we get an opportunity to go into. But for me, it's been about creating a space for myself that I don't think many people have ever gotten to see me in, and that nobody was actually going to probably give me a chance other than if I created it myself. And so that's been the whole blessing in it.
Yeah, such a great way to put that, because that really is how you have to do it sometimes, is you have to just put yourself out there and say, hey, I can do this, whether you thought I could or not. And in that Antonio Brown interview, obviously there's some history with you guys, and a lot of it did come out.
You know what I'm saying? But Ryan Clark was mad at me. This is why he was mad. Because when the young,
Tell it all, baby.
he the leader. When the young player getting money and successful on the team, it come to Ryan Clark. Clark, calm that guy down. He's the calmer. He's the headache guy. When our team looking soft, they look for him.
Here's the vet card.
No, but
They were trying to pull the
let me
vets
tell you
on
what
him.
happened with Ryan Clark. I get the $42 million deal, right? The first day I practice. We in one-on-one lines. You know, the NFL, one-on-one lines is the most competitive thing because, look, it's me versus you and the whole freaking stands watching. And you know me, I'm going deep every time. All of them know that. Hey, this is the first day of practice after I get $42 million.
Same day. It's the same day.
The same day I just got paid. So you know when these guys come to play, it's practice. They come to play against me. Let me tell you how we go one-on-one line. The dude slapped me in the head. I'm trying to give him a relief. He don't even go to touch me. He slapped me in the head. So I'm like, and you know Big Ben throw the ball in the ground. So it looked like he just got the best of me. So I said, all right, we go again. Slap his ass in the head, run the route, catch the ball. Don't ever do that shit again or I'm going to f you over. Right? So now the coach said, oh, he can't do that to him. I'm like, coach, I like you, respectfully, but I'll f you over too. So I told him. So when I tell him that, this man on the other side of the field, he ain't even on his own line. He over there with his safeties. This is all DB. He's the guy running the team. Man, I knew when he got the money he was going to change. Man, this guy, man, I told y'all shouldn't have paid him. So I'm not like, you too, I'm going to f you over. So now I'm ready to f all of them over. That's what's going on. Right. So now I got to do this the whole year. We trash. We don't even make the playoffs. Because these guys was mad I get money, and these guys older. They coming on they on the brink where they ain't getting paid as much. They ain't getting appreciated as much. They want to f me over.
Hey guys, I'm gonna tell you this. Hey, from me, Antonio Brown is full of shit right now.
That wasn't true?
So nobody cared about the money. Nobody cared.
What did you say when the
Nobody
incident?
cared about the money.
How did you come into the incident?
So remember, I told you, I said at the beginning of the show, when Mike Tomlin told me he would get the deal.
No, what did you say when the fight happened? Over there, when you was way over there.
I told you that I was finna f you up.
No, you said, I knew when y'all paid him, he was going to change.
And I was right.
And one of the things that I quote, first of all, Michael Beasley said something that made me think of Antonio Brown, which is what, you know, he was saying that, you know, we go through this pain and people laugh, and we go through these things and people laugh because we're in the spotlight. And, you know, of course, as you know, as a fan, of course, you feel spurned by AB when he does these things. And then you're like, well, he turned his back on us, and he's doing this, and he's doing that. But you can clearly see that he definitely has his struggles, and the theory I always had was that perfect hit must have done it. But in hearing you guys talk, I'm starting to realize that he always was this type of person. And, you know, and credit to Coach Tomlin and, you know, the captains and yourself and the leaders on the team for keeping that under wraps. That had to be hard.
Well, you know what's so crazy? I've said it before, that was Coach Tomlin's greatest feat as a coach. You know, and it wasn't necessarily about keeping it under wraps, but allowing it to not explode or implode the team. To allow Antonio Brown to have a 6-year run that was as good as any run or as great as any run as any wide receivers ever had in this league. And to have a team that was still able to go out each and every week and compete at the highest level. Now, I think people look at that team, the Killer Bees, and say that they should have done better. There shouldn't have been a defeat to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the divisional playoffs, or you should have been able to beat the New England Patriots or whatever it may be. And maybe that's true. But Coach Tomlin did an amazing job of understanding who Antonio Brown was, what a type of talent he was, what he can do, and ways that he could keep getting him to the field every Sunday. And he has a statement, man, and I feel like I quote Coach Tomlin all the time. He has a statement: "We will tolerate you until we can replace you." You know, and I do think that's where it finally got with AB. You tolerate and tolerate and tolerate because of what you were getting on the field until there was no way to tolerate it any further. And I think looking back on our interview, and you know how it is too, like when you're in the interview, you're not truly grasping what's being said and what's going on. You know, as Antonio is talking, I'm trying to listen to him, one, to digest, but I'm also listening to ask the next question, or listening in our case because we had history to, like, when there was some BS going on, and I can say, no, Antonio, that's not why, or no, that wasn't it. And so when I watched it, and because during, I was like, man, he's kind of like rambling and I don't necessarily know how much he's saying. And then I rewatched it and I was like, oh, he said a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and then there were points there where he actually made good points and he actually dropped knowledge on certain situations he was dealing with. And I think one thing that stuck out to me was that he was like, I'm not my best human. I'm not where I want to be. And the decisions I made at those times, though they were not right, they were right to me in that moment. And I think that's huge, because in his own way, right? In his own way, he was saying, I know I effed up sometimes. I know I've messed up. But even in that, at the time, I didn't see it that way. And so I think it presented him as, and even though, I could see by looking at it with the glasses on and the hood and damn glove on and the sparkly finger, I could see how people may not have thought to themselves, this dude has his faculties. But when I really listened to him, it just brought the thought to me of what I thought when he was younger, is that even though he does things that I wouldn't agree with, he has a reason. He has a reasoning for it. And I think that's what I left that conversation believing. But that's what the pivot is, though. Like, that's the space we want to be. Like, I'm sure everybody wants to hear about the many plays that were made. But what's more important is just a space when you watch these athletes or you watch these TV personalities or whoever we may have on, where you leave with a better understanding of who they are, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, makes total sense. And one of the things that you did as an interviewer that you should be proud of, that not a lot of people do, is you just let the man talk. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, listening is the most important part, and the more that he felt he was being heard, the more he shared. And that's just human nature. People love to hear themselves talk, but sometimes, there's a couple of times, Ryan, where I saw in your face, you were like trying not to interrupt, like you were getting a little pissed there, here and there. I was like, oh shit, Ryan, I'm looking at your face and I realized that Ryan disagrees with this, but you don't have to say it because your face said it, and you just kind of let him do it.
That's the greatness of having a great producer and editor though. When they're watching those 5 different cameras and AB says a certain thing, to know at this time, this is when we should pan the camera to RC. and it's been a learning process for me. Like, I can be honest, because you learn that it's actually not a conversation. Like you may think that it's a conversation, but it's not. It's truly allowing your guest to finish a thought. Because so many times in conversation, we are triggered by things that people say that right there in that moment, you want to say, but no, what about this? Or that's not how it happened. And sometimes you miss out on what the essence is that they're trying to get to. And I've truly had to learn that, because it's not TV. Like, I'm used to doing like live TV where I have a minute, I have 45 seconds, I have 30 seconds. And if I don't get my thought out by then and it's made sense, life has passed me by. And that was kind of the way I was hosting the show. Like, hey, bro, you've been talking for like 2 minutes and you have not said anything that I want to hear. Let's move on. And, I've learned as we've gone along that if you let people talk, it doesn't matter if I find them interesting, because a lot of these times I know these humans, right? And I know these people, but other people don't. And so when they get to hear it and they get to, kind of understand the totality of what those people are saying, usually lands home pretty well. Yeah.
So enough about AB. I want to get to you, Ryan, because you've had a great career in the NFL. You played for 13 years, 8 with the Steelers. How much of you is hurting every day at this point?
What's crazy? What's crazy, bro? It actually doesn't bother me at all.
Really?
I think it's so crazy that, because people always ask me, and I'm probably going to give away too many trade secrets here, but it's fun, right? It's fun for people to believe I'm hurting or I'm invested as they are.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
The Steeler fans enjoy it if I get excited about something that they're excited about, or if I'm pissed off about something that they're pissed off about. And I understand that, Now, my analysis is my analysis. What's happened with the team, though, is I don't know anybody.
Right.
I mean, like everybody I played with is done. Now that Ben is gone, so you don't have that attachment. I have attachment to Mike T, and I always want him to win and him to do well. So like that's part of it. But as far as the colors, like it truly is not a thing to me. I'll quote myself here and not Mike Tomlin, is that I'm loyal to people, not places. And I've said that forever. If the people in the building at LSU aren't doing things the way I think and not doing their jobs, right? I don't care if you coach well. I don't care if you are great at being athletic director. I care about the way in which you go about doing your job. I care about the way in which you care about the people that were in positions that I was in. If they're not doing that right, I'm going to call them out because that building means absolutely nothing to me. The people in those buildings matter. And, you have to remember too, Rob, though I played 8 years with Pittsburgh, I never played for an organization that didn't at some point tell me they didn't need my services anymore.
Yeah, good point.
You know what I mean? The Giants for 2 years, Tom Coughlin cuts me. Washington for 2 years, they give Adam Archuleta the biggest deal for safety in the history of football and tell me I can come back and compete for league minimum. Eventually, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they get Mike Mitchell. And I don't have like a negative feeling about those things. Those things are just business to me. And I was undrafted, so I knew those days would come for me at some point anyway. You know what I mean? So I don't have nothing personal. It's not like I see Coach T and I'm like, man, you didn't re-sign me for a third time. No, I don't have that
Send
feeling.
me home.
But it's also not like, guys like the Ike Taylors, guys like the Brett Keizels, guys like the Casey Hamptons that were drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers and spent their entire careers there. And whether they liked it or not, when it was over, they got to leave out that way. They got to leave out as Pittsburgh Steelers. And those guys should bleed black and gold. Those guys should feel a connection to that building. And no, I feel a connection to my time there, though. It was the best 8 years of football I ever had. It's the closest I've ever been to any humans that have wore the helmet with me, which is why me and Troy are still best friends, which is why me and Ike are still really tight. But, as far as like really caring if Mason Rudolph is the quarterback or not, like I only care because it's more fun for me on TV if Pittsburgh's good. If they're not, everybody kills me over it.
Right. Because they just think that you're super loyal to that, and it like bums you out every time they lose. Yeah. I mean that's kind of what they do on the broadcast. They like they'll rag on Bill Cowher even if maybe he doesn't really care if they're gonna win a second game of the week. But that actually brings me to something. As far as you actually were one of the few players that got to do that transition from Coach Cowher, because I think that was your first year was Coach Cowher.
Yep.
And so you actually got to be there for the transition from Coach Cowher to Coach T. What differences stand out to you right away between the two? I mean, because we see it as fans, we see two different personalities, and we both love them in different ways. But behind the scenes, what differences did you notice right away?
So I can say this. I was kind of cheated out of Coach Cowher. Because I came the last year. I think he knew that it was going to be his last year. He'd finally won that elusive Super Bowl that really put him into the Hall of Fame stratosphere. And I'm not saying, in no way am I saying he packed it in, but I don't know if I got that intense, gotta win, chin every play Bill Cowher. Now, extremely intelligent, a great motivator, not just a good motivator, a great motivator, a man that made you feel like he truly cared not only about you, but about your place on that team. And he was 100% probably amongst coaches who have been honest with me, honest throughout. When I won the job, he's like, you know what? You won the job because it was between you and Tyrone Carter, but we love Anthony Smith. He's going to play at some point. And I appreciated that. I also appreciated that when I played excellent throughout my first year, that change was never made.
Right. You were knocking people out. That place was...
Ball's out. Recovered by Timmons. Ryan Clark is still down. So too is Willis McGahee, and they say fumble recovery, Pittsburgh.
That plays a good part in it.
Yeah, and so I think that was about him. And then Coach T was a different experience for him because we're not the same age. We were close in age. And we had kids that were around the same age. And, it seemed that we were both kind of in the same place in our career of trying to prove certain things. And there was a synergy there and a chemistry there and a respect there that I was able to earn from him that made him treat me a different way. That was, I eventually become the captain of that team. And I think part of the reason was the respect and the trust that Mike Tomlin put in me, and not only put in me, the things that he showed and allowed the team to see about me. Whether it was the work ethic, the commitment, the leadership, the loyalty, all of those things. And so I'm forever indebted to him as my favorite head coach, just to be honest with you. The guy I was the closest to, the guy that gave me the ability to be a leader in what was truly one of the greatest locker rooms in football. And so I think they're both Hall of Fame coaches. Obviously, Coach Cowher, I don't have to say Coach Cowher is. I believe Mike Tomlin will be as well, and it'll be well deserved.
Yeah. So when you're in that world and Mike Tomlin takes over, there's a lot of times coaches just like to change a bunch of stuff up just to do it. Mm-hmm. So, he knew what you and Troy had was special to a level that, very rarely a tandem can do. You were very steady and you let him roam wherever he needed to because he knew he could go where he had to go and that you had his back. A lot of times coaches come in and they try to change things. They try to put their own stamp on it so soon. And he kind of let things play out and let it stay consistent, as the organization usually is very consistent. So when you get on that Super Bowl run, which of course is your dream when you start playing football, that's one of the things you dream of. As each game goes on, what changes around you? Like, what do you, because I know that 2-week break and everything that they do there is just must be so hard to stay focused at points. What do you remember about that whole Super Bowl winning experience?
Oh man, it was crazy. I think the first thing I remember is always feeling like we were going to win. Mm-hmm. It's a 12-4 team, so it wasn't like we were undefeated. We obviously lost games throughout the season, but we walked into every stadium fully expecting to be the best team on the field. We walked into every stadium truly thinking that it can be impossible for this team to score today. And I don't necessarily know if many people have ever felt that on any job. If many people felt like, today I can be so dominant at what I do that I can be the best in the world at it. And that's what we felt. And I think the ESPN cover proves it. Unfortunately, we didn't necessarily prove it in the Super Bowl. We almost blew it as a defense, which is always pretty funny.
It's still one of the greatest players ever, so you kind of get a pass on that.
Yeah, and so
it was a tough moment for me.
Yeah, I bet, bro. And so that was kind of, it. But I think the closeness of that team, the pictures that we still have. There's a picture of us practicing at USF during Super Bowl week, and it was raining, and it didn't have an indoor. So we were outside. And it's just the defense while the offense was on the field. But it wasn't just 11 guys. It was like 15 of us. Because obviously you have nickel packages and you have backups and that play a ton. And we're sitting there, and I don't know how we see the camera guy at the time, and we all just like post up for the picture. And it was kind of the perfect microcosm of what that team was. It's Troy Polamalu, this Polynesian kid, from USC. It's Brett Kiesel, right? This hunter that went to BYU. It's, Chris Hokie. It's Casey Hampton, James Ferrier, Brian McFadden, Deshae Townsend. It's like this hodgepodge of humans who like, other than Troy and James, you don't look at it and say, we see greatness. right? But mixed together, it was. And because it was the way we cared about each other. It was the way we fought for one another. And I think that's always going to be the beauty in what we were able to do. And I think, though that wasn't our greatest performance, especially the fourth quarter, James Harrison's touchdown is who we were.
Well, they can pick down here from the gun. Steelers show blitz. Here they come. He gets it away, and it's picked off at the goal line. There's a flag thrown on the run back. James Harrison to run it back, and Harrison is past midfield. Harrison going down the sideline. Harrison still on his feet. Harrison is going to go all the way and waiting for the official to get there. Touchdown is signaled.
It was we had two dudes who were Hall of Fame players. And then we had a bunch of other people that were willing to do whatever it took to win and allow those two dudes to be that. And when you see James catch that ball in the end zone and then the transition made for him to score a touchdown, it shows that. And the great story about that, and I'm talking for a while, just when I start talking about this defense, this happened.
Keep going.
On Wednesday at practice, we were getting like interceptions and turnovers, and we were just doing stupid things with the ball. Stupid things that number one defenses do. We might catch it, interception and jog, or we might catch it and throw it right back to the coach or whatever. Dick LeBeau, man, who's the greatest human that's ever coached a football game, period. And the greatest defensive coordinator that's ever worn a hat on the sideline, brings us in, and he never raised his voice at us, bro. He never cussed us. And he brings us in, and in his way, he shows every turnover from practice. And he says, and he gives us the stats of if you create a turnover and if you score a touchdown, of how those teams win or how the probability of winning goes up. And he said, and if y'all do this, what y'all did at practice, y'all will never be one of those teams that creates those moments. And so for Thursday and Friday, every time we got an interception, every time we got a turnover, everybody transitioned to offense. The guy who had the ball scored a touchdown. The people who didn't have the ball turned and blocked. And then you get that moment late in the second quarter where James Harrison catches that ball, and it was like everybody on the field heard Coach LeBeau.
That's amazing.
Everybody transitioned, to make that play happen. And so it's a year I'll never forget, and I was able to do it with humans who will always be important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it makes total sense now when you see it retroactively how that would have worked. You did mention how tight-knit the team was. Jeff Hartman from Behind the Steel Curtain Network sent me a question for you, and this is actually plays out perfectly here. And this is about the current team or the one that just passed by. It says, Ryan has been unbelievably vocal about the current status of the Steelers and their locker room culture. I think there's some Chase Claypool going on here. No one is arguing this fact, but what is the solution to fix the problem? How do you suggest that they return to the tight-knit group that they once were?
So the first thing is you can't change the generation you're a part of, right? Our generation was different than Joe Green, Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, Mel Blount, right? I'm sure they looked at us sometimes in disgust as well for maybe some of the off the field antics or the things we'd say in the media. I'm not asking that people stop TikToking. Okay. I'm asking that when you get on the grass, I don't have to look for effort. I don't have to look for want to. I don't have to look for football intelligence. I don't have to look for how much it means to you. I think the one thing about our team was when you clicked it on, and this goes to the quarterback as well. Mm-hmm. When you clicked on our games and you watch Ben Roethlisberger take hits and you watch Ben Roethlisberger shed tackles, you watch Ben Roethlisberger extend plays, you could tell how much he wanted to win that day. It was never a question. When you watched Heath Miller catch a football over the middle and get dang near decapitated and the whole crowd scream, Heath, you knew how much he wanted it. Hines Ward, just every single guy you could think of when you cut the game on, you knew they might lose. They might not win on the scoreboard, but it will not be because they weren't prepared or because they didn't go out here and bust their guts trying to get it. That's the difference. Yeah. Because what happens is if I turn on the film and I don't see those things, or if you're watching and you can't stop the run. And then not being able to stop the run, we don't see linebackers busting their gut to get to the ball. We don't see linebackers running downhill, smashing face mashes. You don't see interior linemen other than Cam Hayward in the backfield distorting the run. That's when I turn to effort. And then when I turn to effort, now I want to see what you are doing and what you are saying, because now it matters. It doesn't matter if you're playing well. It doesn't matter if you're playing hard. And I think this team has now become more known for its antics or its behavior than its effort. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference. And you don't have to stop a guy from being who he is that wants to brand himself. But the first brand you always want is a winner. The first brand you always want is that the job comes first. And I think this team has changed that. I don't necessarily know what the solution is, because when I look at the leaders of the team, hell, they're all football.
Yeah.
TJ Watt, all football. Cam Hayward, born with the football.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Minka Fitzpatrick, all ball. And so you still have some of those guys, but, you know, the guys that we had, you know, that were all ball were also crazy as hell too. And they weren't going to let some of those things go on in the locker room or some of those things slip. We've had player-only meetings about players we felt that were different, and they were called out by name, and they were able to addressed, and they were able to address us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the type of team you need to have. Listen, family feuds, but when that family feud, it stays behind closed doors as long as what happens on the field is a representation of who you want to be. And this team hasn't been that and wasn't that last year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And, you know, it does make me – I know we don't have too much time left, but I definitely wanted to kind of touch on that moment when you do have to walk away from the game versus you actually knowing that it's time. Like, what was your moment where you realized, you know what, this is time? Especially because, you know, you see nobody gets the Ben send-off. Let's face it. Most people, unfortunately, do not. So, like, what was your moment where you were like, I think this is it?
So, started the season really well in Washington. First 3 weeks, played amazing. Week 4, playing the Seattle Seahawks, they throw a screen. A guy goes to cut me. I kind of jump over him. I feel my ankle turn, but I hop up right away. I take a couple of steps. I go back down to the ground. You know, do x-rays, MRIs of it, you know, some bone spurs, some ligament damage. And they're like, look, you're going to need to get surgery. You know, and I was like, bro, I'm 35. Like, this is year 13. I am not getting surgery. You know, so I was like, either I play or I don't. You know, I tell the coaches, like, look, if my play ever suffers to the point where I can't help us, you know, bench me. Like, I'm fine with it. Every weekend of my last year of football, a barber would come to my house on Saturday to cut my hair. He'd text me when he was close. I'd call my son, wake him up, and say, go downstairs, and his name was Money, and let Money in. Because I knew how long it was going to take me to get down the stairs. And this is on Saturday, and I had to play on Sundays. You know, the 6 days that I would get to prepare would be absolutely hell, and the reward on game day was no longer big enough for me to go through that. So it's about November. I'm sitting on the couch. My wife walks by. I don't know what she was doing. And I look at her. I said, babe, I'm going to retire. And she was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm positive. And I knew, and that was the day. You know, for me, which is great because I'm an undrafted guy. I mean, I played 13 years, and the one goal I had was to outplay or play longer than everybody drafted that year, right? I didn't know if I'd have a better career, you know, but I wanted to play longer. Obviously, the guy that played close to as long as I did was Ed Reed. I did not have a better career than Ed Reed.
Wow.
Right. You know, but here's the thing. In 1997, the top 2 safeties, as far as rankings in Louisiana, were 1, Ed Reed, number 2, Ryan Clark. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I thought it was dope that we were the 2 that ended up playing the longest. I played longer than him, and that was what I wanted to do. But I also wanted to get every ounce out of my body that I possibly could because I never wanted to miss playing football. And, you know, not being able to get down the steps on Saturdays, you know, limping through warm-ups on Sundays and then finding ways to play was who I was. It was who I was going to be. In my second to last game against the Eagles, you know, we go back in to watch the film on Monday, And, the team I counted for 22 tackles. That was the most miserable week of recovery I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And but I felt like it was fitting. And, I had already worked for ESPN for 2 years before that, first guy with a TV contract, and be an active NFL player. And it allowed me to transition into this part of my life. And I never had a layoff. Like I never had a time, and obviously I'm bigger in media now than I was at the beginning, but I never had a time where somebody wasn't at least associating Ryan Clark with football. And I think, so many of us don't get to say that about something we love so much. And, I finally reached a point now, and, I hope people can see it with the pivot. It's like, I'm okay with you not associating me with football anymore. I'm ready to be more than that. And that's a blessing when, you can move into those stages of your life.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I didn't want to ask you about current state and current NFL, because you fascinate me in so many ways, and we
actually have a little more time, man. If you want to keep going,
okay,
I got like 10 more minutes.
Yeah, sure, okay, great. Because you've when it ends for a lot of people, and you could see Michael Beasley had a lot of that pain in him too. They don't know how to adjust to it, but it's almost like your personality was almost equally suited to the level of doing television that it was to playing. But I do think, after you're telling me that, I think you being undrafted was such a blessing in disguise, because you played with a chip on your shoulder, and you have to in that league. You have to, because there's look, it's a violent game, man. It really is, and you can't play scared, or you can't play with a lack of confidence. Not just because you won't play well, but you will get hurt if you don't think it through that way. So, I was always curious about that part of being undrafted. Were you at the draft? Like, did you think you were going, and then the rounds went by and you didn't? Or did you kind of have an idea that wasn't going to happen?
Well, I mean, I thought I'd be, at that time, a second day guy. I think when you leave the SEC as the leading tackler from the defensive back position, when you started 36 straight games at LSU, when you were an all SEC selection as a junior,
you have a big sack in the Sugar Bowl,
Yeah, I don't think at that time you think, man, I've done enough. You think you're good enough. And but as the process continues to play out, and you don't have as many private workouts as you're seeing your friends have who are going to be drafted, or you're not getting as much attention as other people in the process, I think it starts to open your eyes up to the fact that, oh, wait, I may not be drafted. And so being someone that's been self-aware, I started to look around. Okay, I'm only 192 pounds. I'm only 5'11". I'm not a huge safety. I didn't run 4.3. And you start kind of filling those things out. And then you start to assess, well, how can I make a team? What can I do? And, that was always my mindset. And I actually never thought in my mind that I wouldn't make it, though. Like, I never had that, I'm an undrafted free agent, I have no chance, woe is me. I was like, okay, you got to make your chances. You got to find your ways. You got to take your reps. And that was always the way that I looked at it. That was always the focus, that I had. And, I don't even know, people look at it as, a chip on your shoulder. I actually don't think you can be different than what you are, right? Like, if you're a dude who didn't work before you went undrafted, that's not going to make you click in to be a worker.
Ryan, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I wish we had more time, but I really appreciate it. And more importantly, I want everyone to check out Ryan on The Pivot, Face First Podcast, ESPN. Basically, turn on your television and you'll see Ryan. But more importantly, you can follow him. You can go to Ryan Real R Clark 25 on Twitter, and you can keep up with everything that he's doing. Ryan, I'd love to have you back and get into more details anytime you have time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the Super Bowl championship. I appreciate it. Ryan had some connection issues, so unfortunately he couldn't hear at the very end. But once again, thank you for watching The Hole. I am Rob Sprans. Later, motherfuckers.